Hey guys, welcome to Painted Rhino Podcast. We're super excited today. We get to interview a guy as a friend of ours. His name's Mike Cochran. We're not going to do a lot of talking ahead of time. We're just going to jump into that interview. Jory, you want to kind of lay out what we're going to talk about?
We're excited about this one. Mike came to Christ during the time of the Jesus Revolution when it started, and he's going to tell his story.
Yep, and I can't wait to hear it.
Absolutely. So, look for some Jesus Revolution comments also in upcoming podcasts.
Yes.
So we're excited about that too.
Yeah, we got some fun things planned, I think.
Yes, we do.
One of which is this. So for those on
what I live with.
See, for those on Spotify, yes, I just hit him in the face with the pillow again because I can, because it's fun. But so stay with us, and man, just at the end of the interview, we're gonna shut it down and go right from there, so you guys can jump right into it. But man, grab this and just enjoy it as much as we do.
Until next time.
Till next time.
Hi, welcome everyone to Painted Rhino Podcast. We're back, unfortunately, but we're back. We have a special guest. This is Mike that we were telling you about, Mike Cochran, and we are so glad to have him. We have some history here, as you saw in the intro, but I'm going to let Adrian kick it off. And let's just talk to Mike.
Yeah, we want to hear your story, and we want to just know, what did you experience? What brought you to say something whenever I talked about the Jesus Revolution movie? And before we do that, I do want to give just a brief history of us, just real quick. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the best police chasing bad guy car driving person I've ever been with. Mike and I had an event years ago where I think, and I'm not positive, but I believe we were at a stoplight and some lady got hit or bumped or sideswiped, and the guy didn't stop. He just kept going. So a hit and run, basically. And we weren't in the cool, Starsky and Hutch car.
Gran Torino, yeah.
It was not the red Gran Torino with the white pretty stripe on it, but it was still pretty sweet. It was what was it, 83 baby blue Lincoln Town Car, I believe.
Yeah, it was actually a steel gray Lincoln Town Car. Yeah,
steel gray. My bad.
Yeah,
my bad. So, do you still drive town cars?
No, sir. That was my one and only experience with that.
There you go. But it rode like a dream. And if you wanted to be stealthy and blend in and follow somebody without being seen, what a better vehicle than that? It was great. So this guy takes off. He's like, "Did you see that?" I was like, "Yeah." So boom, he's driving, and I'm in for the ride. And Mike's tailing this guy. And I don't even remember how far we went. Fill us in. How did all that lay out? I mean, we chased the guy, but it wasn't high speed. Okay, that may have been an exaggeration, but it was fun.
Yeah, it was enough to get up close enough to his, license plate and get his county and his number down. But your memory is better than mine. I didn't ever remember what the event was. I just remember chasing the guy, trying to get the license plate number, and just getting that adrenaline, that Starsky and Hutch adrenaline going.
Oh, it was awesome.
And, yeah, that's as much as I can remember, but it's been Starsky and Hutch ever since.
Yeah, clearly he's Hutch. He's had the hair. He has hair now. I got wavy hair. It's waving goodbye. So it's going away. But I mean, Mike, you just should have seen it, guys, because we're talking about hair that would have put Eric Estrada to shame. It was beautiful blonde. Feathered. He's still got the beautiful feathered throwback. It was awesome. Maybe because of that whole 70s experience, and just that whole movement. Great hair was a part of that. Right? I mean, yeah, everybody had that.
Yeah, when I was in high school, during that time in the 70s, I don't know how I talked my dad into it or whatever, but I got away from the traditional barber. And actually, if you want to get the cool haircut, you had to go to the beauty shop, and they cut it with a type of a razor where they just kind of it kind of pulled your hair. And I got at that time what was called a gypsy shag. And yeah, it feathered down and down the sides and down the back. And I can remember coming home the first time with that haircut and walking up the driveway, and my dad standing in the picture window with his hands on his hips, you know. And I walk in the house and he just looked at me and he said, "There'll be no Jesus Christ haircuts around here." So,
Whoa.
Well,
yeah,
I'm
apparently, you know, he
offended.
thought I was with that. So that kind of opens the door to what we're here to talk about. You know,
Exactly.
Jesus was influencing all of us at that time, and I guess I knew the mustache and the beard were going to be. You know, I couldn't handle that. I couldn't handle that, but maybe I could get the hair right. You know.
There you go. There you go.
No, I was gonna say, I'm just offended that we're talking about hair. I'm
Listen,
just telling you what.
the one thing that we all have in common, though, is we've done this well, right? I mean, we've taken care of it. It hides the age, and it just enhances our natural. Okay, I'm getting in too deep. But Mike, we just want to hear your story, and your story revolving around how did you come to Christ, and how did the revolution play a part of that. So
Yeah.
we're gonna sit back and listen.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Any opportunity to give the testimony. Yeah, I grew up in a Christian home, and I went to church. We started going to the Church of God when I was 10 years old. And I was in Sunday school, and I enjoyed that. You know, but as I got to be a teenager, I started experimenting with things. And, you know, I was kind of 1 foot in the church, 1 foot out. But the church had an active youth group, and I was not participating in that. You know, that was going to be a little too much.
Yeah.
And Sunday school was fine because that's what we had to do. You know, we basically went to church on Sundays, and I went to Sunday school, and my parents, they were satisfied that we would do that much. They didn't require anything beyond that, really. But the youth group would occasionally have hay rides and parties and different things like that. And I was right at the edge when it came, you know, most of the parties that were going on in high school were getting pretty rowdy. And, you know, and I wasn't quite ready for that. But I thought, you know, but I wanted to have fun. And so the youth group, you know, with the hay rides and the, you know, Cokes and chips and that kind of thing got to be a, you know, something that I could do. But I wouldn't go to the youth meetings per se, just when they would have the parties.
Right.
Yeah. And so somebody, you know, they kept saying, "You ought to come to our youth meetings. You ought to come to our youth meetings." And I got to feeling guilty, really, kind of about that, about the fact that I would go to their parties, but I wouldn't go to the youth meetings. So it was at a youth meeting that I got saved. They had what, I think you guys probably did this. They had what was called Destination Unknown.
Yes.
So the youth would all meet at the church, and we didn't know where we were going, and we just load up in cars, and somebody in the church was hosting us. And so we went to this house. The family's name was Hewlett. And the way that it all kind of worked for me is we had it around in a circle. That was the, you know, getting around in a circle. That was the big youth thing to do, whether it was the campfire or wherever it was. And different people were sharing testimonies. And as I heard people talk, I had a good friend whose mother had a cerebral hemorrhage, they were a dedicated Christian family, and she did not die, and she recovered. And I knew that was, you know, they had kind of expected her maybe not to live, and to see her come back really got my attention. And I listened to 2 or 3 other more testimonies, and it's finally began to occur to me, you know, I thought I knew who God was, who Jesus was, but I obviously don't have him in my life the way these people do. So they got discussion time, and people were asking questions, and I finally brought it up. I said, "What does it mean to be saved? What do you have to do to be saved?" I've known some guys go off to summer camp, church camp, and come back saved, or go to youth convention and come back saved. And that usually lasted 2 or 3 weeks. And then they were back doing the things we were all doing. And I saw people go forward to the altar, didn't know what that was all about. And, but, you know, I knew that they got saved when they went to the altar, but nobody could really define that for me. And I don't know what all was said. I guess, you know, you accept Jesus in your heart, repent of your sins, so on and so forth. But after that, we took a break, and now it was time for Cokes and chips. And there was a lady, a young girl by the name of Mona Lisa Taylor. And she came up to me and cornered me between the ranch dip and French onion dip. And she said, she goes, well, Mike, it sounds to me like, you know, you're needing to be saved. And man, you know, boy, I was ready to back way up on that one. I wasn't ready. My heart was pounding. And she said, you know, that said that to me. I said, well, I don't know. I said, I think I've already been saved. And she goes, I know. She said, you just know none of this. I might be saved, or I don't know. If you're saved, you know you're saved. And so she kept pressing me, and she kept saying, if you want to receive Jesus into your heart, she says, we can go talk to Brother Curtis. He was our youth minister at the time. And she said, we'll talk to him. And if you want to do it here, or if you want to wait till we get back to the church, we can go in the sanctuary at the altar privately. You know, I said, yeah, let's do it that way. You know, I was afraid to be in front of people.
Right.
I just really kind of get her to back off. I agreed. I mean, I wanted to do it. It was just being able to give her a clear answer right then was difficult for me. And so she said, okay, so she took me up to Brother Curtis and said, when we get done and we get back to the church, Mike wants to ask Jesus into his heart, and we're going to go just into the sanctuary at the church before we go home. And so he said, okay. So the meeting was closed out by, again, getting in a circle and having prayer, and they went around to each one to share prayer requests. And the closer it got to me, the more I began to think, Mike, if you're going to do this, don't be ashamed of it. You know, and I knew if I did this, I don't want to be one of these 2-week things, and then I'm back to the way I am before. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So by the time it got to me for prayer requests, I just said, you know, I just said basically that. I said, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I want to do this here. I'm not going to do it in secret. And everybody kind of looked like, what, you know? And then Brother Curtis spoke out and told everybody what was going to happen. So we knelt down right there at a rocking chair, and I didn't even pray. Brother Curtis put his hand on my back, and he's prayed the prayer, and I just agreed in my heart. But I mean, to tell you, it took. I mean, I fell in love with Jesus right then and there, and I was, by the grace of God, you know, following him. I mean, that was it from that day forward. But as far as do you want to jump in, or you want me to go ahead into how this relates?
No, man, keep going. Okay.
Well, the thing of it is that, and I saw the movie actually the Thursday night before it was released on Friday. I've been chomping at the bits. My wife and I are the chosen freakazoids. I mean, we watched seasons 1 and 2 prior to 3 coming out. We watched it 6 times. The entire season we binged both seasons 6 times. We were just, and that got me through some stuff I was struggling with. But anyway, so I mean, I was ready. So, you know, Jonathan Rumi, we were already big fans, and then, you know, seeing all this and knowing it was that time, I just couldn't wait. And so we were there. We got our tickets in advance and got there that night. But yeah, it was, like everybody is saying, it really captures that time. It really captures that event. But how that influenced me directly, you know, here this is in California, and I'm in Missouri, in a little southeastern Missouri town. And but you're hearing them say, when they talk about this revolution, that it affected eventually the entire country and then the whole world. So, you know, it's the part of how it affected the rest of the country that it eventually got to me. And the thing of it is that I don't think, now somebody could challenge me on this, but I don't really think there was a lot going on with youth groups and youth meetings prior to that. I think that what the Jesus Revolution revealed to everybody was that the church at large was pretty much out of touch with the young people. And they couldn't make it, they just couldn't get that connection. And so when Chuck Smith decided, I'm going to open up my doors to these people, and we're going to do it whatever way touches them or whatever, and let the music come in and all of that, that's how the thing kicked off. And I think that that's what swept across the country, was people recognize there's a movement in the church to open yourself up to the youth, bring that music in, let youth be youth, and celebrate that. Don't try to make them be like the adults. Celebrate what it is to be a youth. And that's what my church was doing by the time 1973 rolled around, and the Jesus movement was pretty much in high gear. So we're doing the whole thing that, like I said earlier, sitting around the campfire, sitting around in a circle, playing the guitar, singing "Kumbaya," "We Are One in the Spirit," all those good old songs with the super bell bottom Levi's, and the big collars and the puka shells, beads, and all that kind of thing was happening. So, and one more thing I would say about that, and I'm gonna shut up and let you guys ask questions or talk for sure. But as I was reflecting on how this all happened, you guys are students of Christian history like me. I see a repeat of history here in that you remember how the Gutenberg printing press just happened to be invented right at the time Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the wall in Wittenberg. And that really kicked off the Protestant Reformation. I think that the Living Bible coming out at the same time as the Jesus Revolution. Now, I don't know if they got together or it was coincidental or just the act of God or what it was. But I think that the King James Version, I'm sorry, King James only folks, I love you. And I love the King James Version. But I think that was a disconnect for a lot of teenagers, just to be able to pick up the King James Version of the Bible and read it and make a lot of sense out of it was quite a struggle, and maybe so difficult that was another reason for the disconnect. But when they started opening up to the Living Bible and you could read that, I know that's what it was for me. My pastor, when I got saved and I came to him and I said, what can I do to be sure that I don't wind up, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, I'm back to the person that I was. He said, read a chapter of the Bible and pray every day. And man, I didn't know where to start. My dad's name was James, so I picked up the book of James and I started there. And it starts off, as you know, brothers, when you find yourselves encountering various trials, be happy about that, because that's the testing of your faith. And man, I knew God had said that to me, because I was already dealing with persecution for the decision I had made with the friends I had been running around in high school. So that's how it hit us. It just became, the youth groups, the youth group phase, youth conventions, all that stuff was happening right at that time, and the Living Bible, and I was all in.
There you go. That's awesome. First of all, thank you for sharing and for being willing to talk about it. It's huge for us. It helps to bridge what we see, because be prepared. I was born in 72, so I'm not saying you're older than me, but I was born in 72, so I came in like didn't even realize what had happened. I do remember when I saw the cover at the end of the movie of that Time magazine where it just said Jesus Revolution. When I saw that, I was like, I have seen that before. It clicked to me for the first time to tie my life together somehow to that event and to the greatness of what happened there. But man, to realize also, I mean, we started out in we cut our teeth in youth ministry. That was our life. And man, to think that what we did was birthed probably from this whole event. And what we carried out. I mean, you're talking about destination unknowns, and man, I love that stuff. We would find some place to go. The kids wouldn't know where we were going. We'd pop in, and then it would go off from there. And to me, that's just huge to see that connection. It's not that we just want to create something. It's not that we just want to piggyback off of something, but that there's the wave effect, from then to, the revolution time, to, my young life and into my ministry. And now my daughter, who's pursuing youth ministry and life there. It's huge to me, and being able to pose questions to you real quickly. We don't want to eat up all your time, but one thing I do want to ask you is, I know that God gifted you with music in a way that He has not gifted many people, and I know that you brought out almost right away in your testimony just now that music was a big part, bringing the music in. Can you share more about that and just tell us more about what God has done with you in the musical realm?
Okay. Well, yeah, I come from a musical family of sorts. My grandfather, my dad's father, played the guitar, the banjo, the mandolin, and the fiddle. And there, we'd get together and there'd be music. And then, of course, I was instantly drawn to band when I got in junior high and high school. There was always something of a love for music for me.
Sure.
And I bought my first guitar for $5. It was an electric guitar that somebody sold to me because it had a short in it. You could be playing it and then all of a sudden it would go out, which is not a good thing for an electric guitar. But all you had to do is hit it once and it'd come back on. And so I went ahead and paid $5 for that just because I was chomping the bits to learn to play the guitar. And then I ordered, the only time I could ever get anything huge like an amplifier was at Christmas time. So I asked Santa Claus for an amplifier and a jack cord, and I got that. So I would sit in my room for hours and I would put on the Doobie Brothers and Alice Cooper and Grand Funk and Black Oak, Arkansas, and I would try to mimic all of these, these
Right.
guys and what they were playing. Well, when I came to Christ, and by the way, I was in a rock band called Bad Company, but it's not the famous one. Theirs is like is it a proverb where it says bad company corrupts good morals, or is it
Right.
just saying?
Yes.
Ours was not like we're bad company to other people. It was like, the bad corporation, that kind of thing, bad company. But
Yes.
anyway, I don't know why I got in all that. We were playing, there was a big parking lot where the church was. And there's a friend of mine was in the group named Jeff Myatt, and his family owned a drapery business. And we were practice over there on the weekends, and the church right across the lot. And a lot of times we'd take a break and I'd look out the window and I'd see, that's when the youth were gathering a lot of times for events. And I'd watch all them get in and out. So then after I got saved and I realized a lot of the music we were playing wasn't appropriate, we played a lot of Rolling Stones type stuff, and I dropped out of the band, and then they replaced me. And then so now I'm at the church looking out the window at the band practicing. So, but anyway, I right away wanted to transfer that music. Now, I didn't discover Larry Norman or Love Song or those people till I got to college. The only Christian music outside of the Gaithers that I knew anything about was there was a guy came to town by the name of Sammy Hall. Had you ever heard of him?
No.
He's since passed on. It's Sammy Hall and Gary S. Paxton. And they came to town and put on, this was all part of the Jesus Revolution. They're part of that. And they come to Poplar Bluff and put on a concert. And I went to that, bought their album. And so I tried to learn a lot of Sammy Hall songs. And then, the different other, again, choruses that were mentioned. Well, the electric guitar didn't really work for gathering around the campfire. So right away, I wanted an acoustic guitar. And I was working at a dime store downtown. There was a music store called Don's Drum Shop, and he had guitars too, but he had these guitars all lined up, and I'd go down at my lunch break and look at all these beautiful guitars. And I decided I was going to get one. Back then they had a thing, you boys are probably too young to know this, a thing called layaway.
Yeah.
Before you get a credit card. You went in and you paid so much down, and he'd take it off the shelf and put it in the back, put your name on it. And you paid so much. Every time I got a paycheck, I took so many dollars down there and paid on it until I paid it off. And then I got it out.
Right.
And I got this beautiful Alvarez guitar. That's the way I got my first acoustic guitar. And so I learned a little bit here and there just to, pick and play around. But what it really took off for me was going to Gulf Coast Bible College and getting in the dorm with other guys that really knew how to play. And then they would show me stuff. There's a guy that we're friends now on Facebook named Don Altman. He taught me a lot of stuff, a lot of other guys, but I was playing in high school, like I said, but that was a totally different genre. And I was basically faking it. I wasn't really, it was just because I play by ear. I'm just listening to records and I'm picking up, riffs and things here and there, but I couldn't really just sit down and play like I could. Now, it wasn't until I got the basics taught to me later that, because I actually in the group Bad Company, I was actually the lead singer, but only brought the guitar in on occasion on the songs I could fake it on.
Gotcha.
but I always had a desire to do more. So that's when it really took off. And then, through the years, it's just began to snowball. The internet coming along has been the most wonderful thing. Any song you want to learn, you can go on. The chords and lyrics are there for you when you Google it. You want to go to YouTube, somebody's done a tutorial. And there's and so I'm at the point now where I just hear a song and I think, oh man, I got to learn that song, and go home and grab the guitar and I zoom in on that song till I get it.
There you go. There you go. Tori, you have any questions off the top of your head? I've been talking a lot.
Well, I'm just interested. I didn't make the connection from the movie that's where the youth movement started.
Yeah, I'm not certain of that. I'm just kind of piecing it together, but I think that's right. You guys could do a part 2 maybe with another person and research that or something, but I think that's right. I don't think there were youth groups. I think that's what put it all together.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me looking back and knowing what my dad did and the timeline that he did his ministry and the things that he did with youth when it was the 70s and it just kind of grew from there. Looking back at the push of that movement, would you say that the core message was love, Jesus love, and to love him because he loves us?
Yeah, it was that, but it was you got that, but it was basically get the word out.
Yeah,
get the word out. Now I didn't learn about soul winning, the Jack Hyles type soul winning on that later, but there was a real push to, wear buttons. There was a big thing in the 70s. And I had one of those one way Jesus buttons that I wore all the time, and the thing was to wear them to spark a conversation. What does that mean? And hey man, Jesus is the only way. That's really all we knew. You got to get saved. You got to come to Jesus, man. And that was kind of the whole thing, as Jesus will change your life, man. And so the push was to, if they could, was that every other young person out there was probably the same. You remember in the movie Room, he sits down with Chuck Smith right at the beginning. He says, the reason they're doing all these drugs, isn't it obvious to you? And Chuck Smith says, no. He goes, they're looking for God.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we had, was we believed that everybody, even though they said they weren't, we knew everybody had their troubles. And we felt like whether they were doing drugs or what they were doing, they're searching for God. And so we're going to show them, we're going to, and most people's testimonies were like my own. Somehow something happened that somebody kind of cornered them or whatever, or got them to come in. And then once they came in, boom, it was, I'm in, and I'm not going back. And so that was the idea. If we can just get them there, they'll get what we got. And they did. That's part of the wave that I think was created by the Holy Spirit there in California. The Spirit was actually moving in such a way that you come into a youth meeting and where they're sitting down and you feel it. You really feel it. You say, I hadn't felt this I had sensed this with drugs. I hadn't got anything like this hanging out with my friends. This is something real. I need this.
Wow, you answered my next question, which was going to be why do you think that movement was so successful and touched so many people in the world? And you just answered it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So
it was the time. It was the timing. God's timing. It's always God's timing.
Absolutely. One last question before we let you go. And this is connected but totally not connected. So, and it may hit you sideways. I don't know. But as we keep going in what we're doing, we're going to be digging into the word and the way that we read the word. And we in the church have a tendency to just read the story or just to read the word and not pick out and find those small things in there. And then we read it as instruction or we read it as education, right? And so we kind of take it like it's a textbook, but there's that flow, that thread, that truth all the way through it, where if we took just a moment to look back at all the times God is expressing his love to us and his love for us. If we take that love and we understand it all the way through everything we read, and we go all the way back to the beginning and we see the fall, what we're seeing is a love relationship in the fall that is lost.
Yes.
And the entire story, I'm getting emotional, the entire push of Jesus is to win back his love. Everything he did was to win back the one that he loved, that he's lost, that he needs. And to hear you talk about that, the whole push was to tell someone else, to get the word out, to spread this because it is real and it does make a difference. And you talk about feeling it. Man, I'm 50 years old. I still feel it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And if we were to read, that whole sorry, it gotta pop up on my screen right when I'm getting good at stuff, man. You can't be doing
Go
that
for it.
to
That's
me.
yeah. We're 9. We just got another 10 minutes. We're good.
Yeah, it's all good. So if you read and understand and paint everything under the picture of Jesus' effort is all to win back his, as he put it, first love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that change how we do things from here forward? And what can we learn from that time in your life and that time and event that now is in front of the whole world through this movie? What can we take from that and bathe it in that love? And how do we move that forward? And can this happen again?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe so. And I think we're seeing signs of that from what I haven't seen anything lately on the Asbury Revival, but Asbury Revival, the initial one, the one I was aware of was 1970. So it was right when all this was happening.
Wow.
So, man, if God's doing that, but yes, you're exactly couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better, Adrian. Love. And the older I've gotten, I just realized this the next day on Friday when I was getting ready to go to work. That night that I saw Jesus Revolution, that very night was my 50th anniversary as a Christian.
That's awesome.
I didn't know it. I didn't realize it the next day because that movie got me thinking back about the time. And so it got me eventually back to thinking about when I made that initial decision, where I was and what, and then I realized because I'd written it on the inside of my living Bible, the day. So I'd never forget that. I knew, always when that was. But yes, it is that. And you're exactly right. When you read in Revelation, when he says, come back, return to your first love. I think that's our problem in the church. We've often focused on people needing to come back to first love because they've allowed the world to distract them into the ways of the world again. And there's definitely some truth in that. But I think the church, forgive me if I'm stepping on any toes here, offending anybody, but I think we get too involved in too much theological discussion and we lose the love.
Yes.
And you see it on Facebook, these people, and I don't know if you're like me, I belong to 3 or 4 or 5 different discussion groups that are theologically based, and the threads of the guys going and gals going back and forth, and they can get as ugly as anything going on in the world. And I really wonder, what good is that doing? See, that's the total opposite of what the Jesus movement was doing.
Yes.
These people that are going at each other and thinking that they can justify that action, and those kinds of words and that temperament because they're doing it for God and for truth, don't realize that they're wrecking everything because they're not doing it in love, and they're actually pushing people away. What attracted people to the Jesus movement was exactly what you're saying. They felt loved and accepted. Love and acceptance. Yeah, we know there's lots of things people can talk about, but the big thing is, do you know God loves you?
That's it. That's it. Mike, thank you for doing something crazy like talking to these guys. I mean, you know us. We're just kind of we are who we are, as flawed or whatever. We're just out here. So thank you for spending your time and for sharing with us. I mean, Troy, you got any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so encouraging to hear somebody with Mike's experience and wisdom and say things like that. We need to hear it. We need to
Absolutely.
hear it. And I can't thank you enough for
Well,
saying that.
Definitely.
thank you for inviting me. I was very honored to be asked, and to be a guest on the Painted Rhino. Is there a little story behind that?
There
Blake?
is. There is. I encourage you to watch the first episode.
Okay.
But basically, Rhino comes, it is rhinoceros, and this all came out, the Rhino part came out of a book by Erwin McManus, The Barbarian Way.
Okay.
And right, so rhinos,
Remember that
they
now.
weigh up to 6,000 pounds. We're talking 3 tons, right? And they run 35 miles an hour, but they can only see 30 feet in front of them.
Oh, okay.
Talk about going by faith and not by sight. God gave him that bumper to protect him, right? And so when he said, do something like this, we're going to go do it and we're going to try it and we're going to lay it out there. And here's the podcast because he said, go. We don't know where it's going to go. I can't see it, but he does,
Right, right.
and,
Well,
and he goes ahead of us.
well,
So
you're in the venue. You're in the venue where a lot of stuff's happening right now. So, just, yeah, thanks for inviting me. And just don't forget, when you guys get world famous, don't forget us little people that helped you get started. Okay.
Well, the goal isn't fame for us, it's fame for him, and you're far from a little person. The last thing I want to say is personal, and that is to everyone listening. Been through some very hard times in my life, made bad decisions, bad choices, made a lot of mistakes. And there are 2 or 3 people in this world that loved me through that and in spite of that. And those 2 people are on the screen with me right now. So I want to tell you guys, thank you for exhibiting what you're preaching, for exhibiting God's love, and for loving through that. Because if it wasn't for you guys, I don't know if I'd be here, but I am because of you. So thank you for that. Thank you for your faithfulness, guys. I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And Adrian, I've always been fond of you. You know that your dad, I know you just lost your dad in December. I just lost mine February 1st. Your dad was a big influence on my life. I'm in Mississippi today because of your dad, I know you miss him. I love what you wrote about him. Your dad had a big influence on my life. I know you did on yours. My dad had a big influence on my life. Maybe we can do a Father's Day episode sometime.
That would be awesome. I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love, and real quick, another thing, I was in the car on the way here. I think we're going to do a decades series. We're going to dress the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. We're going to put on the look and then talk about events and music that happened then. So, Mike, if with your permission, down the road from time to time, if you could drop in, that would be amazing.
Just let me know when you want me, man. I'll be there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And God bless you, man. Thanks for your time, man.
Absolutely.
Lord bless you both. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. And hopefully you got something out of that. We appreciate Mike so much. And be looking forward to more special guests that we're going to have on this. So you never know what we're up to. So God bless. We will see you later.